Um, this topic today was inspired from our Intro to Conscious Communication workshop this past Wednesday. It's this idea of like expressing our truth. We kind of liken it to stage two, right, babe? Like emotional obnoxiousness and what's after that of like, yeah, if I'm speaking my truth, like, is that a good thing? I mean, I put a good thing there. It is a judgment, but I think what we're exploring is the difference between emotionally vomiting or dumping on someone, which I call like
Yes, yes,
idle self-expression, right?
yeah.
Versus containment, versus expressing from a place of ownership. And I like to ask you, babe, like, what do you think the difference is?
Can you clarify your question so that I know I'm answering specifically?
Yeah,
Or
like,
maybe can I paraphrase for you?
sure,
Okay.
yeah,
Are you asking me the difference between emotional vomiting um, versus expressing a truth in a way that is more easily met by somebody else versus, the
yeah. I mean, is there like we talk about speak your truth, right? And so, what makes the difference between having that truth be received in a way versus kind of being pushed back, right?
right? Yeah, I think there's a couple layers to this too because some people speak their truth but they're labeling people, they're judging people like you're an asshole, that's just my truth. um, and they don't realize that,
Hmm.
maybe there's a different truth to be spoken that's not a label or a judgment of someone else but more about ownership of our own experience
Hmm.
of what's happening in our inner world. We're not taught to share that stuff, and it is what allows us to actually feel connected to other human beings.
Hmm.
Like when you say, I've got this heaviness and this phlegm in my chest, I'm kind of curious. I'm like, oh, and emotionally, what does that feel to you, like this heaviness, or what's happening for you in your world?
Hmm.
um, and so I think there's a reciprocity involved in, here's what I'm sharing here in this exchange of energy versus how I'm feeling is about you. And there's a distinction about, like you said, emotionally vomiting, unbridled self expression, which can look, people can get up into throwing stuff, and it gets up into some very more violent expressions
Hmm.
versus checking in and owning, oh, I have my heat's full of my heat, my chest, my heart is full of uh, heat, and my heart is pounding and my head is racing, and I'm observing myself. And when I speak to someone else, we can say something like, I'm noticing my head's pounding, my rate,
Hmm.
it's this, but owning it. And I think I said that in a really long
Hmm.
about way because I'm not
Hmm.
sure, and I'm looking forward to this conversation because I want to know what the difference is. Like, what is speaking your truth, and what are your thoughts like on that?
Hmm. I agree. And like, there's a distinction between when I'm expressing myself, am I projecting blame and shame onto someone else? Like they're the cause of my feelings, right? They are the one that is causing me this hurt and pain. And that only creates more conflict in a way of like causing the other person to be defensive and not hear me, right? Because we're kind of on the combative versus like me expressing from a place of owning my experience. Like this is what's happening within my inner world. And because I do that, like I'm not projecting this blame and shame and guilt onto you, that increases more chances of you hearing me, right? Or having compassion for me or wanting to contribute to my well-being. Yeah. So there is definitely a signature where conscious communication plays its role because I judge that I was brought up in a society that blames, shames, and guilts people. Like, you know, if I don't do this, I'm not a good boy, or if I don't do this, I don't get the love, right? And so I'm so trained to think of what's wrong outside of me, right? It's just ingrained. And so that's why conscious communication is a skill. It doesn't come naturally. And when we can have the
Well,
skill to communicate like what's happening for me, then that can be received and be met. Hey?
yeah. Yeah, I think it's bringing in another thing with what you're saying, and that is that, you know, we've been
Mm,
taught, what did you say as a child? Like, we're either right or wrong. You're a bad boy, you're a good girl.
mm,
And so there's this idea of right and wrong, and that the idea that people don't want to contribute to our well-being. That sometimes people just want to take from us. They're selfish, they're dependent, they're needy. There's all sorts of judgments that people have versus what I truly believe is that everyone wants to contribute to everyone else's well-being, because when
mm,
someone else is doing well, feeling well, it's in the field, especially if I'm living with them. And so I think people desire to contribute to others' well-being. And
mm,
so I think it comes from a story and a place that we've been brought up with, which fundamentally I disagree with. This idea of maybe even going back to original sin versus maybe Matthew Fox's book, Original Blessing.
mm,
And how do we communicate that we trust another person's innate design to give to life, to want to contribute, to wanting to express, to wanting to have meaning in life? I think that's how we're innately built, anyways.
mm. Yeah, I love what Giselle commented there in the chat is like being aware of what my motivation is behind speaking my
Mm.
truth. I love that, right? And we share this in our class about like what is my goals? Like, is it to be right? Is it to be on top? Is it to win and have power over you, or is it to have power with, or is it to meet the needs of everybody, and create a life that's more wonderful for everybody involved? So that's so key in terms of what is my motivation. Because if I'm in a place of like irritation and anger and mad, it's so easy for me to be like, it's your fault, right? And I want you to repent, right? I want you to say sorry. I want you to change to make me feel better. Interesting, right? Versus like this place of like owning my experience of like, this is who I am, this is what's happening for me. And I'm owning that. And I'm also inviting you into this experience to connect with you in that way. Because I also want to have you experience with me and have um, really have myself be felt by you, right? Because that's a need to be seen and heard, right?